Finally, new graphics cards based on Nvidia's new architecture, Turing. My thoughts. Ray tracing is a big deal in computer graphics. It can make the difference between something just looking really good or something looking basically non-discernible from reality in terms of graphics. Now, obviously that can be done to single images, and we can all see images put out by obviously like companies like Nvidia and AMD that show us how good this stuff looks on an image per image basis. But to do that live and in real time is a step in the right direction as far as computer gaming graphics goes. But not all is what it seems. Jensen, back on Monday during his keynote, wasn't too keen on showing, displaying, or talking about any non-RTX performance metrics. So comparing the new 2080s or 2080 Ti's against the previous generations. That sort of information for basically the traditional rasterization type graphics was not put forth, and it still hasn't really quite been put forth, at least not by Nvidia. We're all still waiting for benchmarks. But when it comes to companies like these anyways, the recommendation is to wait for benchmarks. So it does look bad that they didn't exactly want to be so open with that kind of information, but in the end, you'd be taking benchmark information from the company that wants to sell you stuff, so you'd have to take that with a grain of salt anyways. So with that said, I repeat, wait for benchmarks. Now, a different view of what the ray tracing push from Nvidia can mean for computer graphics in general going forward in the future. A lot of you may or may not know that ray tracing technologies, that sort of stuff, is better supported in DirectX 12 and Vulkan, as a matter of fact. So DX12, Vulkan, very similar APIs in terms of getting closer to the metal in terms of programming, and obviously that's what makes it a little more work for the developers of the games, and that's why adoption hasn't come up as quickly as we all would have liked. However, ray tracing, RTX, Nvidia is known for working with, or sort of, I wouldn't necessarily say paying, but maybe that is the case, working closely with companies in order to implement their technologies. And in this case, that is going to mean a push for DirectX 12. Well, DirectX 12 is very nice in terms of how much more power it can get out of your hardware, and same with Vulkan. So that's definitely a step in the right direction if Nvidia pushes it that way. Now, that is somewhat of a reprieve for AMD because as far as anyone is concerned, they're not really in the picture in this sector right now. And that's actually sort of one of the reasons that I guess Nvidia is getting away with their pricing. You know, all things considered, the stuff's still expensive, especially their Founders Edition stuff. So anyways, with that said, AMD with their reprieve will be because Nvidia is pushing for better DirectX 12 and maybe I suppose better Vulkan support. Well, anything that makes ray tracing look good, they're going to be pushing for it, and that's those two APIs which Radeon is known for working better under. So that's I mean, it's not much of a consolation, but it's something. Anyways, that brings me to my next point. Something else that wasn't really talked about during the keynote is the new SLI connector that is on the graphics card. Well, specifically that is NVLink. And that NVLink connector is something like 50 times faster, or has 50 times more available bandwidth in it that you can put through it. And that's really awesome when it comes to multi-GPU configurations. But as far as anyone is concerned, as far as what we've been able to find out looking online and all that stuff, the core of how it works is still basically the same. So the burden of SLI support is still on developers. It's still on, I guess, Nvidia for driver profiles or SLI profiles for all that to work. And well, that's kind of a bad thing because it's not functionally going to change how SLI works. So everybody who asked the question, is one GPU better than two in SLI, or rather one bigger, better one? The answer is still going to be yes, because the core of how the technology works is not really changing. So never mind the fact that the NVLink connector is $80. So if you wanted to go multi-GPU with the new generation cards that use NVLink, you're really going to be paying for it. And but getting back to the original point of what I was trying to connect this to from my previous one, DirectX 12 and Vulkan both have superior something called explicit multi-GPU support. And what that means is you can run graphics cards, even mismatched graphics cards. Explicit GPU support is sort of like a layer in the API that is on the developers to enable, but I guess sort of like Jensen says with RTX, you just got to turn it on. Now I'm probably oversimplifying it, but in the end, I hear that it's a lot easier to get multi-GPU support under DX12 and Vulkan through mGPU, as some call it, or just explicit multi-GPU. And you don't need an expensive SLI or NVLink connector to do it. So the ray tracing push into DX12 and Vulkan is going to result in better multi-GPU performance, something that everyone has been sort of wishing SLI and Crossfire were already. It's going to bring that to the forefront, and hopefully it will make multi-GPU setups a lot more feasible than they already are, because they're pretty much a niche at this point. You know, obviously with Nvidia sort of slowing it down and going down to 2x or 2 GPU support for gaming, and then cutting it short there. But with all that said, again, the future is looking very positive with the beginning of what Nvidia is trying to push for right now. Ray tracing, RTX, all that stuff, and I guess Radeon with, I think it's called OpenRay, and or rather Radeon with OpenRay, yes. All that together, pushing forward where Vulkan and DX12 can become the mainstream API as opposed to DX11 is going to be a boon for all gamers on all hardware that supports it, which for the most part is most modern hardware at this point. And well, definitely looking forward to that, because you know, it'd be nice to get 2 GPUs and not really have as many issues as a lot of people do that run SLI. So cool stuff. I'm really looking towards the future here. And as far as traditional performance over last gen, wait for benchmarks. I'm sure it'll be great. I personally hope we get more than 30%, because generation to generation historically lately has been 20 to 30%, but it's been 2 years since Pascal, and even longer than that since basically Pascal is sort of like a tuned and optimized Maxwell. So it's kind of a long time, and you know, I would hope to see like 35 to 40, hopefully more, maybe up to 50% traditional GPU performance increase. But you know, I'm not gonna hold my breath, because Nvidia is gonna Nvidia. What can you do about it? One more thing I wanted to add is that I think it's really interesting, Nvidia's tactic right now, going with a 2-fan cooler, something that was more AIB-like, and also the Founders Editions being clocked out of the box higher, basically having a factory overclock, which is weird, because if it's coming from Nvidia, that isn't an overclock. That's, in my opinion, that's just the clock, right? Isn't it? And so again, that's probably why you're seeing so many manufacturers comes out with 3-fan models or even chunkier cooling solutions to differentiate themselves from Nvidia. But that has to be making AIB partners upset, I'm sure of it. That has to be bothering them, that now Nvidia is encroaching on their business. The company that you're buying your GPU dies from to implement into your own solutions is competing with you now. Interesting tactic, Nvidia. Interesting. AMD really needs to step it up. I'm sure we can all agree on there. And well, again, this DX12 and Vulkan push is definitely going to help them out, but they really need to step it up even more. Come on, guys. Let's see it happen. What do you guys think? Are you guys going to buy a new GPU from Turing? Are you going to double up, maybe find a used one and go SLI with your current gen stuff? And leave a comment below. Let's talk about it. I love talking tech with you all, and I love talking about all this stuff. Super enthusiastic about it. And well, cool. If you guys like this video, click that like button, subscribe. We always got more coming. Stay tuned. Thursdays at 8 p.m. we have our game streams. Sometimes we stream other stuff like our builds, which we did on our last weekly stream. Check that out. That will be linked right here. And we have a merch store, so if you guys wanted to help us out, support us, and get some cool stuff out of it, that will be linked in the description below. And cool. We'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.